Hi, I'm Esta Stecher. It's great to be back up here. I'm the CEO of Goldman Sachs Bank USA, and I am truly delighted to be here today to introduce, where did she go? She's hiding, my good friend and colleague, Liz Beshel Robinson. Two things, though, before I tell you a little bit about Liz. First, I'd like to congratulate all of today's very accomplished honorees. You are an incredibly impressive bunch. And second, a quick thanks to everyone in the room. You know, when I graduated from law school in 1982 and joined Sullivan & Cromwell, there were no women partners at Sullivan & Cromwell. And in fact, there were very few women partners at any of the big law firms in New York. So you look around the room and you say, okay, we've come a long way since then. But there's still a lot to be done, and today's event reinforces our shared commitment to providing educational and career opportunities for women and girls in this country. Continuing legal momentum's mission is impossible without the help and support of the individuals and organizations in this room. Thank you for the commitments that you and your firms have made. And now moving on to Liz. Liz is the global treasurer of Goldman Sachs. She's well known across the financial services industry as an outstanding manager of risk and a critical decision maker at the firm. If you've picked up a newspaper over the past year or so, perhaps you know that she joined Goldman Sachs straight out of Williams College as an analyst in our investment banking division in 1990, that she was the youngest person ever to be named global treasurer of Goldman Sachs, that she was one of David Vinier's proteges during his time as CFO, that she is frequently cited as one of the most powerful women on Wall Street, and that she is a, quote, rising star at Goldman Sachs. All true. And there's more. In addition to her role as global treasurer, Liz is the co-chair of the firm's finance committee and the firm-wide capital committee. We have a lot of committees at Goldman Sachs, and she's on a lot of committees. Liz is on the board of directors of Goldman Sachs Bank USA, so in a sense I work for her. Our partnership committee, the principal investment committee, the public policy committee, the steering committee on regulatory reform, and the investment banking division's client and business standards committee. It's amazing she has time to do her job. Liz has also played an integral role in many of the critical changes in our firm's history, recent history, including our IPO in 1999 and our transition to bank holding company status in 2008. So bottom line, Liz has an amazing ability to balance the firm's commercial interests with our appetite for risk. It's almost impossible to overstate how challenging this can be on a day-to-day basis, and Liz does this really, really well. We could be here all day talking about Liz's professional accomplishments, but I thought you might also be interested in hearing a little bit about what Liz does in addition to her day job. First, Liz is one of the most effective advocates for furthering careers of women at Goldman Sachs. She spends a lot of time on training, and she's a mentor to countless women and men at the firm. She's closely involved in our recruiting efforts. In fact, she's been known to make personal phone calls to every student from Williams College who has a job offer for the summer or for a full-time position. You know, we normally ask mid-level hiring managers or recent graduates to make these phone calls, so you won't be surprised to discover that the yield from Williams College is really higher than average. Outside of Goldman Sachs, Liz is a trustee of Williams College and a trustee of the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. She's also a member of the advisory board of Doctors Without Borders. Liz is a devoted wife and mother who has figured out how to spend time with her husband and her two young kids in addition to her many commitments. Liz is an outstanding example of the type of person we're very proud to have at Goldman Sachs. So because of everything I've told you, and because we think she's the best, we can't think of a person more deserving of today's aiming high recognition than Liz. Please join me in welcoming Liz Beshel Robinson.
That's good, it weighs about 1,000 pounds. Wow. I feel like I should just not even screw this up by speaking at this point. Thank you very much, Esta. Obviously, as you heard, Esta is a prior award recipient. She's also the chairman of our bank, but she also has been a mentor and role model to me for very many years at Goldman Sachs. So that was That was amazing. Thank you to a lot of colleagues from Goldman Sachs that I see out here in the room today, a lot of people from our favorite law firms, our favorite clients. Really appreciate all of you being here today. I am so honored to be up here. It's really humbling to be in the company of such a list of past recipients, as well as the other women being honored today, all extraordinarily distinguished careers. And as I learned, as I've gotten to know them over the last 24 hours, also just a really interesting and nice group of women as well. Those of you who know me know that I love to talk nonstop in meetings, but that I do pretty much everything I can to avoid speaking in public. In fact, the only thing I find less appealing than speaking in public is inviting people like you that I know and respect to take time out of your busy days to witness an occasion where I'm going to be, if only for a minute, the center of attention. And then to have to try to say something worthy of that attention is terrifying. So, but thank you for coming. Thank you for listening without complaint so far. And thank you, as Esta said, for all of the support and generosity that you all have shown to Legal Momentum. So I know about Legal Momentum principally because my daughter, Ava, and Elizabeth's daughter, Kate, who's here today somewhere, go to school together and take the school bus together every day. And this is maybe a classic example of what we're told is a distinctively female form of networking, sort of no power brokers involved here, just a school bus and the occasional piece of chocolate cake and Chardonnay at Bubby's after school. Elizabeth and I actually tried to start a Girl Scout troop last year together, which didn't actually end up working out because we were too busy to make it happen, which is probably familiar to a lot of the working mothers here as well. So we could ask Kate, who's here today, but I'm pretty sure that our daughters don't spend a lot of time on the school bus talking about the rights and responsibilities of women in the classroom or in the workplace, but they're going to grow up. And they're going to find out that these things do matter, and that these things will have been shaped, at least in part, the world that they live in. I appreciate that now, having been at the time the unknowing and definitely ungrateful recipient and beneficiary of Title IX while I was growing up as a reasonably mediocre student and a really lousy JV field hockey player in the 1970s and 1980s. But I appreciate it now, given where I am. And so when I learned about Elizabeth's day job, I was immediately fascinated by and very grateful for the contributions that she and all of her colleagues at Legal Momentum are making in the lives of women and girls. And despite the fact that I'm the one up here talking today, that is really what we're all here to celebrate and to support. But since I'm the one up here talking, just please indulge me for a moment as I reflect on how I got here, because as I thought about the title of these awards, Aiming High, it didn't feel quite right to me, because I'm not sure I can take credit for having done that. I've definitely worked hard. So far, I can't tell that there's an alternative to that at Goldman Sachs, but I'm looking for it, though. But I'm really intensely aware of how fortunate I've been along the way. I'm grateful for my parents, who prioritized education, for my mother, who insisted that women could do anything that men could do, and probably a lot of other things besides, for a father who taught his daughters that with privilege comes responsibility. I'm grateful for 23 years at a firm that understands the power of diversity and works very hard to ensure that our employee base reflects the world in which we live. Goldman has also not very subtly encouraged me to use my title and my platform to mentor the next generation at the firm, but also to make sure that I give back to the community in which I live and work. I'm grateful for having lucked into a boss, as Esta mentioned, David Vinier, our former CFO, who almost single-handedly is responsible for a whole series of women's careers at Goldman Sachs, including my own. I'm grateful for my children, who tolerate the constant presence of my BlackBerry in their lives, but who have really taught me to look at the world differently and to look at my place in the world very differently. And I'm grateful to my husband, who's here today, for his unending patience, for really fully sharing the burdens of childhood, but also the joys of our children, and for generally making me a better person. So I'm really on this podium today thanks to the support of my family, thanks to a number of terrific mentors and sponsors and friends that I've had over the years, access to education, and an employer that supports the hiring and development of women. And at least in 2 of those, equal opportunity in the classroom and in the boardroom, my way has been paved by legal momentum and by the efforts of a lot of women who came before me, and I'm very grateful for that too. My final observation is I've talked a lot today about work and about family. There's a good deal of discussion, obviously, in the media these days about how women balance their work and their lives. They lean in, they lean out. I don't have the answers to that, and that's a way longer discussion than what we're going to have here today. But I'd acknowledge that it takes a lot of prioritization, a huge amount of support from other people, and a very strong focus on the long game. Definitely isn't easy. There are never enough hours in the day to do all of the things we want to do as well as we all want to do them. But I, and probably many of us in this room, have been very fortunate to have that choice, to have a job, to have a family, to have both. And I need to remember never ever to take that for granted. And ultimately, that is what speaks to me most about what Legal Momentum does and what their vision is for the world. That they're really striving to extend those opportunities to all women and girls, and that they're striving to provide all women and girls with the legal rights and with the economic security so that they too will have the ability to make their own choices. So with that, I'm going to stop and say thank you all again.